Welcome to the Thursday edition of Fair Territory. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with Alanna Rizzo. Alanna, a busy time in the game of baseball right now. We've got a lot to discuss, including the NL playoff picture, the All-Star ballot, which was released this week, and yes, a big series between the Dodgers and Yankees coming up this weekend.
Hi, Ken. It's always good to be with you on Fair Territory. Appreciated it also. Don't forget, you guys, we want you to be involved in the show. It's a lot more fun when you guys participate. So load up those questions for Grillin Ken, Ken Rosenthal, the opportunity to ask Ken some questions. It's awesome. Yeah, you're talking about so much to do, Ken, and let's get right into the lead. And it's such a tight playoff picture as far as the National League is concerned. I mean, there's only 4 teams right now in the senior circuit, Ken, that are above 500.
That's right, Alanna. And when you look at the wild card standings in particular, it jumps out at you that all but 2 teams in the National League, all but 2, are within 3.5 games of a playoff berth. So when we talk about buyers and sellers, and you can look at the standings right here, this is the wild card chasers. These are not the wild card teams right now. Those are the Braves, the Padres, and the Cubs. But beyond that, we've got the Cardinals, Giants, Pirates, Diamondbacks, Reds, Nationals, and Mets, all within 3.5 games. And when you go on a little bit of a hot run here, like the Mets are right now, you're all of a sudden thinking, playoffs. And this is what the expanded postseason brings. And if you recall last year, Alanna, I'm sure you do, on August 14th, the Diamondbacks were below 500 and they made the playoffs. So when we talk about the deadline, which is still almost 2 months away, when we talk about who might be buyers and sellers, pretty tough to sell when you've got a chance to make the playoffs, as all but 2 teams in the National League do right now. There might be some separation by the deadline. I understand that, but just look at the Diamondbacks last year. That's the example all teams are looking at right now and saying, that can be us.
Ken, what does that tell you, though, when there's only 4 teams that have a winning record in the National League? So many other teams, it's really a crapshoot as to who gets in. Are these teams, is it okay to not try to win? Is it okay to try to not have big off seasons when you know what, we could still be below 500 and still make the postseason picture?
Actually, a number of these teams are trying to win a lot. They're just not playing particularly well. That situation, in my opinion, has improved in recent years. We still have a couple of teams that are, to use Tony Clark's famous phrase, racing to the bottom. The Marlins in particular stand out in that regard. You have some teams in the American League as well, the Athletics, of course, that aren't exactly going all out. But you look at the Reds, the Pirates, some of these teams, they are trying. It's just that right now we have a lot of mediocrity, especially in the National League. The American League, it's basically similar, except the gap is a little bit wider between the bottom teams. So the way I see it, it's not a question of teams not trying as hard. I do think that they've tried as hard, even though not as much money was spent last winter. It's more that nobody is that good right now in the National League.
Yeah, a lot of parity, if you will, when it comes to the teams that are still fighting for that playoff spot. All right, the All-Star ballot opened up yesterday. You can get your votes in for your favorite player, your favorite players on your favorite team. Get them to Texas. Arlington, of course, is hosting the All-Star game this year, home of the Texas Rangers, World Series champions. And really, when you look at it, Ken, the shortstop position, I think, is the most interesting as far as the starting position is concerned for the All-Star game.
The American League for sure. And it's going to be fascinating to see how this vote turns out because the game is in Arlington, as you just mentioned, Alanna. Corey Seager was the World Series MVP for the Texas Rangers, who play in Arlington last year. Corey Seager's been hot. He had an injury situation come up last night with his hamstring. But even though he's been hot, he is not the guy in the American League at shortstop right now. The guy is either Bobby Witt Jr. or Gunnar Henderson. And let's take a look at how these two compare. They are 2 of the best players in the league right now, not just 2 of the best shortstops. You see that Henderson has more power, Bobby Witt more stolen bases. OPS is almost identical. Gunnar is at 948, Bobby is at 935. Bobby Witt Jr. rates the slight edge in Fangraph's version of WAR, but basically it's flip a coin. My hope, Alanna, is that one of these 2 is elected. I'm not sure I care which one. They're both great. I just don't want to see this ballot box getting stuffed with Corey Seager votes when in this particular season, he is not the most deserving guy at that position.
That is such a good point. Where is your take, or what is your take on getting this in based on popularity versus getting in based on merit?
It's always a great question, right, Alana? And we all have our opinions on it. It's difficult because you don't want to reward simply a half season, and you don't want players in the game who aren't stars and who are just having a great half. The difference with Bobby Witt Jr. and Gunnar Henderson is that they are stars. Gunnar Henderson was Rookie of the Year last year. Bobby Witt, I believe, was second the year before. These guys are at the top of their games right now. They don't play in the largest markets. They might not have gotten as much attention as a Corey Seager, but they certainly are worthy. Now, let's look at another aspect of this, the National League outfield,
Mm.
Alana, and that is interesting in another regard.
I could be in there, Ken, as far as National League outfielder is concerned. Nobody sticks out.
Nobody sticks out at all. And the problem is, if it's a problem, you want to call it that, Mookie Betts is playing shortstop. Bryce Harper is playing first base. Corbin Carroll is having a down year. He was a brilliant performer for the Diamondbacks last year. So those players, Profar and Winker and Conforto and Spencer Steer, those are the leaders in OPS in the outfield. I didn't do WAR when we put that list together. It really wouldn't make much of a difference, I don't think. It's going to be a little bit different this year, no question, in the National League with regard to the outfield. We'll see who's elected because who's elected might not be the same. And of course, I forgot to even mention Ronald Acuna Jr. being hurt.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't having the greatest of years, of course, but he just underwent knee surgery. He's out for the year, and he, of course, would have been there. So it's one of those years with regard to the National League outfield. Doesn't make it a bad thing. We'll see some new faces. I just don't know that we'll see the biggest stars in the world
Yeah,
playing
my
in the
only my only
yeah.
request of the All-Star game is that they go back to wearing their respective team jerseys.
Amen.
Everybody should go back and wear the jersey of your team. I loved when they do that. I understand from a monetary perspective and having an opportunity to have more jersey sales, but go back to the days of when everyone wears their own team jersey. I loved that. And by the way, if you want to go and get tickets to the All-Star game, how about you do it through SeatGeek? They're a new partner of ours. We're happy to have them here, of course, on Fair Territory. And again, Ken, when you think about the weekend series coming up, because there's still a lot of really good series to be played before we even get to the All Star game. I think everybody has Yankees and Dodgers circled. Maybe that's because I'm a Dodger fan. I don't know. What about you?
This series has been circled by a lot of people for a long time, and it's the game I'll be at this weekend on Saturday for Fox. It's a series that might not have quite the same luster because of the way the Dodgers are playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just had that difficult series in Pittsburgh. The Yankees, of course, are playing out of their minds and have been all season. Judge and Soto, that combination has been ridiculous. But the sheer amount of star power on the field is what is going to make this thing go, Alana. It's going to be Otani, Betts, and Freeman. It's going to be Soto and Judge. And beyond those guys, a lot of other really good players as well. That's what will make it fun.
Yeah, and by the way, Dodgers territory is coming up after foul territory today. And Dodgers territory, listen and leave 5 stars for us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Head to YouTube and like, subscribe, and share Dodgers territory live on Mondays and Thursdays at 12 p.m. As you know, Ken, Pacific, Dodgers territory with Clint Pacias and myself, part of the foul territory family. And SeatGeek is part of the foul territory family as well.
It is, Alana, and if you want to go to the games this weekend at Yankee Stadium, SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. They have you covered for all of your ticket needs. With over 28 million downloads, they're the number one rated ticketing app. So baseball season is in full swing, obviously, and you don't want to miss out. SeatGeek has your tickets to every game and, of course, concerts, festivals, and more. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. So use our code FAIR, F-A-I-R, for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code FAIR. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app.
And honestly, just from personal experience, having used a lot of different ticket marketplaces, SeatGeek, I feel, is one of the most trustworthy. So welcome to the Foul Territory family. Time now for Grillin Ken. Let's get the questions in. As Ken, take advantage of the fact that you can ask Ken Rosenthal a question. The first one, Ken, is a Yankees pitcher, Carlos Rodon, who seems to have seemingly put 2023 behind him. That Yankee starting rotation has been absolutely tremendous. So our first question in Grillin Ken is about the Yankees lefty as we get to that here. Dr. Anarchy 69, Carlos Rodon's ERA is much lower than his FIP. Does Ken believe that means Rodon is due for a regression? Explain, first of all, Kenny, what Dr. Anarchy is asking you, and then you can answer the question.
Okay, FIP is fielding independent pitching, and that is a statistic, a metric that is really pretty much exactly what I just said. It is a measure of a pitcher independent of his fielding. You take away things that the pitcher cannot control. So, Carlos Rodon, based on what Dr. Anarchy 69 is saying, is probably due for regression, yes. But I will say this about Rodon in a more general sense, because this is the important point with him. We have seen over the years various Yankees pitchers, Arabu, Andy Hawkins, I can name a bunch of them, even Sonny Gray, not succeed in New York, kind of melt in New York. All of those guys had those issues to varying degrees. Carlos Rodon seemed like he was heading in that direction last year, right? He was hurt a lot. He didn't pitch well. He showed up Matt Blake, turning his back to him in his last start. All of these things happened, and yet he came back this year, and he is back to being something close to the old Carlos Rodon. That is the most important thing going on with him. Yes, he might be due for some regression. Okay, all of this will balance out over the course of a season, but cheers to Rodon for doing what he did, for coming out of it. Not everybody does. Not everybody comes out of a hole in New York and succeeds. He has done that.
And it looks like Garrett Ken is imminent for his return. Some say, you know what, give him one more rehab start. Let's protect the bullpen a little bit more. You have guys, obviously, that can do the job. They've done it so well in his absence. Do you think he should make one more rehab start, or do you think it's best for Garrett Cole to get back into that starting rotation?
Well, the plan is for him to make at least one more. And I would expect if he comes out of this next one okay, you put him back in the major leagues. Why waste bullets in the minors? I understand the need to build up. That's important, and it has to happen. And maybe it does take two more starts. Maybe it takes three more. But my guess is if you can get him to 65, 70 pitches, put him in the big leagues, let him build up the rest of the way in the majors, and get the best of Garrett Cole while you can.
All right, you can continue with the questions for Grillin Ken. We have another one in the super chat here. We always appreciate you guys participating in that and being a part of Fair Territory. Daniel has this to say: thoughts on the Pirates so far? Got to give Bailey some love.
Bailey Falter.
I can't see. I'm so blind. Bailey Falter some love. He has been a nice surprise. Also, I really like Connor Joe. I do too. I liked him when he was a Rocky. Obviously, he's a cancer survivor. He is doing well. What is your takeaway? I mean, obviously, they won the first two games against the Dodgers. Great pitching from two rookies in Jones and Skeens. What's your biggest takeaway from the Buccos so far?
Those two guys, that's the biggest takeaway, and the difference that they have made. They've transformed the team in many ways, and Nick Gonzalez has come up and done a good job at second base as well. I remember writing with Stephen Nesbitt before the season started kind of a detailed analysis and a critical one of the Pirates and how they have not developed all that well, and of course how they will not spend money. It seems now, as Ben Sherrington said in that article, that some of their prospects are coming up and they're going to be contributing not just this year, but for the period beyond that. Henry Davis is back in the majors as well. I kind of like where they are. O'Neal Cruz is healthy. That helps as well. At the same time, you want to see more. You want to see them keep going. You want to see them add at the deadline. And stop acting like Bob Nutting's little plaything. Start acting like a competitive team. That's the test for them. They signed some free agents in the winter, but their free agent spending is always at the bottom. And here they are. They have a chance. They have a unique situation here with Skeens and Jared Jones. These guys are probably not going to be 200-inning guys, right? You have to supplement what you have. You have to get more offense. You maybe have to go get a starter. All these things are in play for them, or should be in play. That, to me, is the test for the Pirates. Good for them for getting to this point. They're getting better. There's no question. And they might get better still. But they have to try to supplement what they have.
And wasn't that the point, too, of signing Brian Reynolds to that long-term extension, is that we're going to try to compete. We're not going to sign you to this long-term deal and you be the only piece that matters. I mean, wasn't that the point of him agreeing to stay there, is that they were going to make an effort?
Mitch Keller, too, Alanna. He signed an extension recently as well. And yes, but it's one thing to sign players to below-market extensions, and it's another thing to add payroll at the deadline and to go out and get actual real free agents in the winter. They got guys like Martin Perez and Aroldis Chapman and Rowdy Tellez. These are complementary pieces at best. They need to be more of an impactful player than they have been in the past. Hey, look at the Royals and what they did this last offseason. They're not in a much better financial position or revenue position than the Pirates are. They went out. They got Lugo and Waka to head their rotation It's made a world of difference.
Seth Lugo's been ridiculous this year, and Michael Walker's been a nice piece as well. Continuing the questions here on Grillin Ken on foul territory, we have a question regarding the Mariners. Jetty Engineer says, do you think that the M's can keep the division into September? Do they need to do anything to keep it? I think they need to get some bats. I think they have the pitching. I think their offense is weak. Am I fair in saying that?
You are in complete fairness in saying that, Alanna. And it's the thing with the Mariners that has to be taken care of. And their owner told the Seattle Times, Howard Lincoln told the Seattle Times this week, they will have flexibility at the deadline. We shall see. They didn't have much flexibility in the offseason. They have, right now, a starting rotation and arguably a bullpen, though it's taken some hits with injuries, that you have to take advantage of. You have a rotation this good, you have to go all out to win. Your window is right now with this group. Can't wait. Can't wait for next year. Can't plan for the future. No. Go get it now. And yes, they could use a bat in a big way, probably multiple bats. Pete Alonso on that team, and they were talking about it on Foul Territory yesterday. That would be a heck of a piece. I don't know if that can happen, but they, like the Pirates, need to be aggressive at the deadline.
That would be incredible to see Pete Alonso in Seattle. I tell you what, in Jerry DiPoto, there's nobody that loves making trades and acquisitions more than that guy. So we'll see what happens there as far as the Seattle Mariners are concerned. Garrett Crochet, Ken, probably the only bright spot of the Chicago White Sox. Justin Lamas wants to know, hey, Ken, who gets him?
I don't know who gets him, and it's always impossible to predict that. I reported with Dennis Lin this week that the Padres have been the most aggressive. In a way that's not news, the Padres are always the most aggressive on available talent. And then I added something today in the windup, which is the Athletics free daily baseball newsletter, just mentioning that the White Sox are going to value Crochet as a number one starter, as they should. He's pitching like a number one starter. Problem is, he already is at his career high for innings, 69 and 2/3. He is probably not going to be a viable starter all season. Now, you can stick him in the bullpen, and the Padres are a team that could do that, and hey, he'd be a pretty good weapon there. And then you have him for 2 more years. You can build him up as a starter again next season. But it's going to be interesting because teams are going to want Crochet at a price, and the White Sox price might be entirely higher than those teams are thinking because the way they look at him is, hey, we have got a top of the rotation piece here, maybe not for the rest of the season, but for 25 and 26, you have to pay accordingly.
And can you imagine what the White Sox fan base would do if they got rid of Garrett Crochet, considering everybody else on that team has kind of underperformed? I mean, maybe they think, hey, this guy is part of our future. What are we doing here? So I don't know that they'd be that excited. I don't know. Maybe, am I wrong in that?
I don't think you're wrong necessarily, Alanna, but the way they are, they've lost 13 straight now. They're 15 and 47. If they trade anyone on their roster, I don't know
is that bad, Ken? I don't know if 13 straight.
That's pretty bad. I don't
good?
know if anybody in their fan base will be too offended. I think everyone in Chicago who roots for the White Sox understands that a flushing is necessary.
All right, and flushing in the South Side, not necessarily in New York. All right, we were talking about the American League shortstop spot and how it is so crowded when it comes to the All-Star game. Where do you put Volpe in there? Harry Wagner IV wants to know.
Volpe is an interesting guy in this discussion. So a few weeks ago, Alanna, I wrote about this, and I included Volpe, in the 3-headed monster in the American League for shortstops. And fans in the comments just took me to task. Volpe is not Henderson or Witt Jr. You just put him in the article for clicks. No, I put him in the article because Anthony Volpe is a really good player. Really good player. Maybe an all-star. I just don't see him right now in the same conversation as Witt Jr. and Henderson. Those two guys are at this level. Volpe's a little bit below. Still an outstanding player. I like what I've seen this year from him, especially he started to slump in May and kind of came out of it again. And now he's hot. He's got this on-base streak. He's just an outstanding young player. But Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. right now are ahead of him. Right now, those guys are superstars.
Yeah, it's a completely different tier. Not that Volpe's not a good player, but they're certainly not Gunnar Henderson or Bobby Witt Jr. All right, we're going to be back after a quick word from our foul territory friends, Scott Braun and Eric Kratz.
Here from FT. I wasn't feeling as focused as I wanted to be and heard some buzz about AG1. Since drinking AG1 daily, I felt energized, locked in, and ready to hit the day.
Braun here. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a better, smarter way to elevate your baseline health. Kratz, not only did I replace my multivitamin with AG1, but I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. That's a big deal for me.
I recommend AG1 to fam and friends because it's tested for 950 contaminants and NSF certified for sport.
Kratz, we're both traveling a lot too, and those travel packs are clutch. I drink AG1 daily to support gut health so that we can dominate the day. So if there's one product to recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1, and that's why we're excited to welcome them as a new partner to the FT network. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/Val. That's drinkag1.com/Val. Go check it out.
And Kenny, they're not fibbing because they're actually in Vegas. Both Eric Kratz and Scott Braun are in Vegas. Foul Territory follows us, and they're doing a show from there. So check them out, and thanks for AG1 for being part of the program. Time now for Dude and Dork of the Week. This is one of our standout performers from the past week. So Ken, I'm going to let you go first. Who is your dude?
My dude of the week is a guy who would never ask for such an award, a guy who is really underrated, even though he's been around for a few years now. And I'm talking about Phillies manager Rob Thomson. Rob Thomson, as a manager in his third season, remember the first year he came in and replaced Joe Girardi, took the Phillies to the World Series. Last year, again, had a great year. And then this year, they are one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best right now. Look at his winning percentage among active managers. It's amazing. Dave Roberts is the leader. I know Dodger fans might be surprised to hear this.
Isn't that amazing? They always want him to get fired, and Dave Roberts is at the top of the list.
He's the leader in active winning percentage. I know this is the regular season. You don't have to remind me. Aaron Boone is second. Rob Thomson right behind him in third. He's done a brilliant job with this team. They are playing out of their minds again. A lot of credit goes to the players. They have a single tough-mindedness about them that, to me, is a little bit unique in the game today, but Thomson holds this whole thing together. Under Joe Girardi, they weren't the same team. They weren't the team that they are now.
Yeah, and 2 years ago, about a couple days ago, is when Rob Thomson took over for Joe Girardi. He had just had his 2-year anniversary as being the Phillies manager. My dude of the week, it's actually a fan base, and it's Rob Thompson's fan base, if you will. The Philadelphia Phillies giving Rhys Hoskins, who thought he was going to get booed in his reception, returning to Citizens Bank Park, this time, of course, as a member of the Milwaukee Brewers, and the fans were awesome to Rhys Hoskins. Obviously a big part of what the Phillies have been able to accomplish over the last couple of seasons. They gave him a standing ovation. JT Realmuto, of course, doing the right thing, taking his time so Rhys Hoskins could tip his cap to the fans, and then he hits a home run. And some of the fans, of course, were like, well, damn it, he's not on our team anymore. But you got to love what Rhys Hoskins did. So kudos to the Phillies. But I ask you, Ken Rosenthal, a man that is from the East Coast, what has happened to the Phillies fans? Remember, they gave Trey Turner a standing ovation when he was in the slump, and now they're welcoming back former players. They had a 4 billion minute standing ovation when Chase Utley went back as a member of the Dodgers. What's going on?
Alanna, I say this with loving respect, but the Phillies fans have gone soft. Philly fans in general, softer. Remember, the Knicks fans came down and dominated them in the NBA playoffs. I remember back a long time ago, Alanna, when I was in college in Philadelphia. I was from New York. I drove my orange Ford Granada with New York plates into the vet for a Giants-Eagles game, a big one, and people were throwing rocks at my car. That is the Philly I remember. I'm not saying it's a better version of Philly. This is a better version of Philly, but things sure have changed.
Yeah, I tell you what, obviously it's very well known. I'm a Dodgers fan, but my second National League team right now is the Phillies. I'm obsessed with this club, and I'm obsessed with their fan base. All right, your dork of the week, who is it? Actually, it's more than one guy.
Oh, it's 5 guys. It's the 5 guys who were suspended by Major League Baseball this week for betting on baseball. Now, if there is one rule that every player should know, one that's posted on the clubhouse in every Major League park, in every clubhouse, visiting, and home, it's Rule 21, the one that forbids you from gambling on baseball. These guys were doing it, And they not only were doing it, they were doing it with a bookmaker that tracks everything quite diligently. That bookmaker, a legal one, reported it to Major League Baseball, and hence they were suspended. Michael Kelly, A's pitcher, was suspended for betting less than
I know.
$100.
I
These
know.
guys put their careers in jeopardy. Tucupita Marcano, of course, is banned for life because he bet on his own team. It's a shame, obviously, but these guys had to be smarter too.
And Sal Frank pitched in the World Series last year, and he's banned for a year because of his activities. It's not even the dollar amount, it's just the idiocy of the whole process. You know, if you want to bet on basketball or football, knock yourself out, but you can't bet on your own sport. My dork of the week, it has to be the A's. And I feel like, again, we should, categorize this category as the A's dork of the week. Once again, now they're going, of course, to Sacramento, and now they have a bright idea that they want 10% of their home games to be away from their own home field. What are they trying to do here, Ken? It's already bad enough that you take them out of Oakland. Oakland fans don't have any professional sports teams left for the most part. And you're saying, okay, we're going to play in Sacramento now. We're going to try to create this fan base before we go to Vegas, if that's in fact even going to happen. But 10% of our home games are going to be on the road.
They want the flexibility to do that. I don't know that they would use all 8 dates in that fashion. Okay, that's fine. But you're going into a new market that I know this might shock the A's people, is not necessarily going to be receptive to their act. So if you're doing that, maybe you low-key it a little bit. Maybe you don't ask for the maximum number of dates or an excessive number of neutral site dates. You say, okay, we'll do that over time. But the A's, as usual, their tone-deaf approach is quite something. It is something that never ceases to amaze. And while I don't know that this is an actual big deal, it certainly comes off as a big deal, and it's another misstep by an organization that seems to have missteps, I don't know, once a week or so.
I think that's the biggest point. If another team does this, you don't give it as much credence. But when the A's continue to make these very peculiar choices, it's just a pattern of something where you're like, why do they keep making these dumb mistakes, these dumb choices? I mean, the fan base has got to be like, enough already. But again, they're probably not surprised. Time now for a super chat regarding Jerry Reinsdorf. We're going to bring that up here as we continue with foul territory. Referee 583, thanks for being a part of this. Ken, what's your thoughts on White Sox owner, obviously, Jerry Reinsdorf? He's killing his franchise and making fans hate the Chicago White Sox like the A's.
I hear this a lot, and I hear it for understandable reasons. And I wrote a column this week about Pedro Grifol and how probably he is running out of time. That's true. But we all know the problem with the White Sox doesn't start with the manager. It doesn't even start with the new general manager, though he was farm director for a time, Chris Getz, and is part of this organization. It's Jerry Reinsdorf and the way he has run this team. And he routinely angers fans with the way he runs this team. He's asking for a new stadium now, which is kind of galling considering the way that they've been playing. So, yeah, it starts at the top. There's no doubt about that. They've had a lot of things go wrong that are out of his control. The injuries, for example. But it's just the way these teams have been put together. It's the management that, for whatever reason, could not get it together before Getz, Rick Hahn, and Kenny Williams. They just lost their way, it seemed. So, yes, Reinsdorf is responsible. There is no question about that. And any fan frustration with him is entirely understandable.
Yeah, entirely warranted. Is Jerry Reinsdorf loyal to a fault sometimes? Keeping
Yes,
guys on
and
too long?
Alanna, I'm glad you make that point because we have seen that time and time again with him, and it's his greatest quality, really. His employees generally swear by him. At the same time, as with all of us, your greatest quality and your greatest strength can be your greatest weakness as well. And at times it has been a weakness. The rehiring of Tony La Russa in retrospect was a mistake. Staying too long with Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams, probably a mistake, even though those guys are not bad baseball people. It's just a pattern here, and it's not a good one. They needed, I thought, and A.J. Przinsky made this point on Foul Territory at the time, instead of Chris Getz, who might prove to be a very good GM, they needed an outside voice. Bring in someone else with fresh ideas, kind of start over. Now, Getz is doing that in his own way. And again, he might prove very good, but they promoted from within and at a time when they needed to seek outside help.
Yeah, I think the Colorado Rockies are a lot the same way. They promote a lot from
Yep.
within and are loyal to a fault. That's it for us here on Fair Territory. Of course, Ken is back by himself with another episode of Fair Territory on Monday. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Welcome SeatGeek to the fam. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Join me and Clint Pasillas on Dodgers Territory. Oral Hershiser's joining us today this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. And of course, Foul Territory is next from Vegas. We'll see you then.